Hello everyone, and welcome to this information session about the Government of Ireland Postdoctoral Fellowship Programme 2021. This webinar is meant for potential candidates from Latin America and the Caribbean in all areas of knowledge. My name is Charlotte, and together with my colleague Victoria and my colleague Daniel, we represent EURAXESS in Latin America and the Caribbean. I'll be your moderator today, and I have practical information for you. First, you will receive a recorded version of this webinar in a follow-up email in the coming days, and the slides will also be made available. After the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session, so please type your questions in the Q&A section of the GoToWebinar. I'm very happy to welcome Elaine Pereira Farrell, who is at the initiative of this webinar, and I also take the opportunity to thank our colleagues of EURAXESS in Ireland for their support. Let me introduce Elaine, our speaker. Elaine is a former Irish Research Council doctoral scholar. She was also awarded a postdoctoral mobility fellowship by the same council in a program called Elevate, which is co-funded by the European Union under the Marie-Sklodowska-Curie actions. Elaine's area is late antiquity and medieval history. She is co-founder and co-leader of Insulae, the Brazilian network for the study of Britain, Ireland, and the Isles of the North Archipelago in Antiquity and Middle Ages. Elaine, the floor is yours. Could you unmute your microphone?
Yeah.
Go
okay,
ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte, for this lovely introduction. And good afternoon for the ones on this side of the Atlantic. Good morning to everyone in Latin America. Bom dia, buenos dias. It's a great pleasure to be talking to you today. So Charlotte already gave a very generous introduction of my career. So I have it here just in a snapshot, and I want to highlight that I don't work for the Irish Research Council. The Irish Research Council is aware of this webinar, but they are not directly involved. So I'm originally from Brazil, from the state of Rio de Janeiro. I did my bachelor degree and my teaching degree at the Universidade Federal Fluminense. Then I moved to Ireland for my postdoctoral degree, and I was awarded by the Irish Research Council. After that, I was a postdoctoral fellow, and my funding was co-funded by the Marie Curie actions, as Charlotte mentioned, and that took me to the University of Utrecht for 2 years, and another year back in Ireland for the conclusion of my postdoctoral research. But as you will see there, I was actually under that scheme for another 2 years in Ireland because I had a maternity leave. So fellows are entitled to paid maternity leave under this scheme. Recently, I have been working as a grant proposal support, first at the University College Dublin, and then this year at Trinity College Dublin. And at this moment, I am working as a researcher and coordinating the Insulae. Okay, I managed to pass my own slide now. So let's talk about the Irish Research Council and the vision of the council. So the council is, his vision is to be an agile council that invests in people, skills, and ideas across all disciplines that will deliver new possibilities for the future within Ireland and beyond. So you can read their strategic plan on their website, and also the assessment process, so the process under which you might be assessed if you submit your proposal this year. What is on offer in this course? So the postdoctoral fellowship program is an individual prestigious award for excellent researchers, and it's under the name of the applicant. So you are going to be the co-applicant. It's an individual fellowship, therefore it's not that you're going to be joining the team of a senior researcher, but you will have it under your belt and on your CV as the person who actually attracted the funding. An objective selection process using international independent expert peer review. So that means all your reviewers, they are abroad, they are not within Ireland, to avoid, bias in the process. Funding across all disciplines from archaeology to zoology. So that's the only national funder in Ireland that would fund all the disciplines, including arts, humanities, and social sciences. Awards for bottom-up, non-directed research, with the exception of those funded by strategic funding partners. So you are proposing the council your idea, and they will consider if they will fund it or not. So the only way that the other way around is proposed is for the funding partners. So every year the government of Ireland, through the IRC, elaborate partnerships with government departments and other institutions and organizations who co-fund a particular scheme. And therefore, if your project is under that strand, then you had to meet the criteria and the proposal indicated in the terms and conditions. A salary of 31.27 thousand euro per year, plus staff contribution. So we will have PRSI, that's Irish taxes, and that's towards social support, for example. So if you stay for much longer in the country and you're out of employment, for example, you might be entitled to financial support and other benefits. So that's essentially tax that all staff pay in Ireland. And you're also entitled, depending if it's applicable to your case, to the institution where you're working, to a pension contribution. Eligible direct research expenses of 5,000 per year. So if you're applying for a year postdoctoral fellowship, you will have 5,000 euro. If you're applying for 2 years, you have 10,000 euro, and you might invest the money as you wish, according to the guidelines of the universities where you're applying to. So you might be able to buy a computer, a laptop, pay for travel expenses, or buy books, lab equipment. So you might name it, as long as it is an eligible cost. And this money is managed by the institution where you will be registered. So this doesn't go into your direct account. So in terms of knowing where it fits into the national researcher salary scales and career framework, so if you want to know about the range of salaries for postdoctoral fellows in Ireland, you might access the Irish University Association website, and on that page I indicate that if you click on that button, you will download an Excel spreadsheet where you can see the different salary scales. So the IRC salary scale is at level 1.11, and that's average that in terms of postdoctoral fellowships in Ireland. At the very end, I'll mention a few other possibilities, and then I'll indicate to you which option would be the highest than the salaries paid by the IRC. Well, looking at the actual program, there is a large range of documents that we must read, and I really want to encourage you to read all the documents. Read them carefully, read them slowly. You may not read them all at the same time, you read as you need, but it's really important that you're fully aware and informed about all the details of this program. So if you look at core documentations, terms and conditions, it's where you're gonna know the structure of the program, what are the eligibility criteria, what are you entitled, what are your obligations, and like the legal binding between the council and the fellow and the institution that might support you. Department of Rural and Community Development Impact Fellowship, so that is the specific strand of this year. So if you think that your proposal might fit this strand, by all means, I encourage you to try it, because if you choose this and you are not awarded, you are still going to be considered under the open strand. So you might actually have double possibilities there, and I do encourage you to think about it if your proposal fits that strand. Assessment process flow chart, application guides, I'll be talking about them as we go along, but it's really important so that you read at least the guide for applicants, because that's where you will know the details of the online application, of the structure of the project, and other important information. Guide for mentors, I suggest you to send to your mentor, especially if they are not familiar with the IRC, if they are new to the Irish system, or if they are supporting a fellow for the first time. I really encourage you to point them to this link. Guide to referees as well, especially if your referees are outside Ireland, if they're based in Latin America or elsewhere, you want to familiarize them with the form and with what they need to do in order to support your application. Guide for research offices, you don't need to worry about this. The research offices at the institutions here are extremely experienced with this program, so they will know what to do. Indicative forms, again, so there is the indicative form for the 1-year fellowship, 2-year fellowship, and that's particularly for you as an applicant. And then there is the indicative form for your mentor and an indicative form for the referees. Frequently asked questions, so these documents will be updated regularly by the Irish Research Council, so I really encourage you to read these as well. And as you have questions as you go along through the process of writing your application, check these lists, because it will be updated. So it might be that the question you develop in a week's time might be already addressed there because someone already submitted a similar question. Eligibility criteria. Is this program the right fit for you? So the first criteria there is that you must have been awarded your doctoral degree within the 5-year period before 31st May 2021. So many postdoctoral fellowships would define how many years after your PhD you are still eligible to apply, and this is the case. However, you might wonder, you might want to know that breaks in research career paths are considered. So if you had a maternity leave, a parental leave, or prolonged sick leave that is provable, that you have documents from doctors and so on, you might actually be eligible beyond the 5-year period after your PhD. So this time will be deducted from the 5-year aspect of eligibility. The other criteria is you must have co-authored at least one published peer-reviewed research publication. In case you have just finished your PhD, if you just submitted, had your viva voce or your defense, you may not have many publications yet. You can submit part of your doctoral thesis. But if you are already an experienced researcher, you obviously want to show that you already have some publications on your record. Applicants must not have had 2 previous unsuccessful applications to the program. So I am assuming most of you hearing this webinar are new to this program, but if you have applied before and you were unsuccessful, you can't try more than 2 times. So I also want to drag your attention to this in case you are considering applying this year, to make sure that you are ready, because if it really is your plan, your long-term plan to come to Ireland, if Ireland is a key country on your list of wishes of countries to work, if you have strong relationships, I highly encourage you to not burn your chances if your application is not ready. If you feel like your application is not strong enough, perhaps hold on and try next year. So it's really important to try to prepare your application well. Must not hold or have held a Council Government of Ireland postdoctoral fellowship or an enterprise partnership postdoctoral fellowship. So that's another fellowship scheme under the Irish Research Council. So essentially, you can't have had a fellowship award from this council. You must not have been employed as a postdoctoral researcher for more than 5 years. So that also relates to the rule of not having been awarded your PhD for longer than 5 years, and must not be a permanent staff or either in the an Irish institution or an international higher education institution. So that means this fellowship is not for established scholars, established lecturers who are already professors at universities. So that means you can't use this fellowship as part of your sabbatical or something similar. So that's really is for early career scholars trying to gain research experience and establish themselves. In terms of nationalities, this award, this fellowship is open to candidates from any country, any nationality. But obviously, if you're awarded, you have to comply to certain rules. So one of them is obviously the Irish immigration rules. But if you are awarded a postdoctoral fellowship such as this for longer than 3 months, so obviously if you are awarded for a year or two, you are entitled to a host institution agreement. So the process will be through the university of your choice that is supporting your application, where you're going to work as a postdoctoral fellow. So they will issue this host agreement for you, but the visa process is organized by EURAXESS Ireland. In this case, if you have a family, if you bring a spouse with you, they will also be entitled to a visa that will allow them to work in Ireland. So that's really very positive. Obviously, trying to bring, a kind of very realistic aspect. Obviously, we have to consider that we are living a time of pandemic and economic crisis is hitting all countries. So that obviously has to be taken into consideration. But in terms of legality, spouses will be allowed to live and work in Ireland. In terms of a few tips, I watched recently an interview with Antonio Filippi. He works for the human resources at Trinity College Dublin, and he's very knowledgeable about visas and permits for people to work in Ireland. So I really encourage you to watch this YouTube. Unfortunately, it's in Portuguese only, but it's very helpful to understand the processes. Upon award, if you are awarded, it's advisable to wait until the human resources of your host institution to confirm that you are indeed eligible to a host agreement before you start purchasing your tickets and making the whole plans for your travel and movement to Ireland. So just to be cautious about this, because even though it's a legality, you need to have a confirmation of the whole paperwork. Again, in terms of nationalities, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that the Irish Research Council has an international engagement strategy, and part of this strategy is to attract to Ireland excellent researchers, people like yourselves that has a great contribution to make to the country and to the development of science in Ireland, but also to bring Irish researchers abroad. And in that sense, for sure, all the international connections that you might bring with you will help to make Ireland a more global place and the institution where you go more international. In terms of awards, this map is on the strategy published by the Irish Research Council, but this dates from 2018. But just to give you an idea of how many percent to date, back in 2018, went to scholars outside of Europe. So 14%, and there are a good few already from colleagues in Latin America. Ireland became a very international place in the past decade. So this is from the census 2016, and you can see the top 10 non-Irish nationalities living Ireland, and Brazil features amongst them, and people from Spain. So that means that Spanish is also a widely spoken language in houses in Ireland, within households. So I really want to encourage you to find your community on social media. So if you go on Facebook, for sure you will find loads of groups of Mexicans in Ireland, of Argentinians, of Brazilians for sure, and there are groups just called Latin Americans in Ireland. So I really encourage you to connect with this community if you want to know more information about living costs in Ireland and other information about other kind of information in Ireland. Numbers of awards made per year. So it's an average of 8 awards each year in the last 4 years. So if you decided you want to apply, this is the right fellowship for you, you want to come to Ireland, first step, you need to identify a mentor and an eligible institution. So the Irish Research Council has provided a list of eligible institutions. We have many universities in Ireland, we have institutions of technology and also other institutions of research. So you might choose a mentor that is suitable for you, and it's very important because the match between your profile and the profile of the mentor is going to be considered into your application. So you want to get it right. Inform the research development office of the respective institution. So most of the institutions here will have a very large, well-developed research office that will have loads of support for people applying to these kind of grants. So you really want to link with them, ask them what supports they have, and also they will need to endorse your application. So your mentor needs to confirm to them that they are supporting your application. Look for the page of the Career and Development Office of the respective institution. So as well as you will see, to write about your career development in this application is very important. And then you might want to link with these offices and also see what kind of supports are there for your pre-proposal, but also to indicate on your proposal what will be the supports after you're awarded, what the institution you're going to can offer you to train you and to make you a better professional in your area. You need to choose 2 referees, and I really advise you to inform them in advance, because once you go into the online platform, you will need to register their names and email, and they will receive an automatic email from the Smart Simple platform. So you don't want them to be wondering what's happening, but you want them to know that you're applying and that you are relying on them to act as your referee. Evaluation criteria. So there are 4 parts of the project. So your track record, research potential of the applicant, and that's 30 marks. So basically that's your own profile and all your career achievements so far. And I want you to know that the reviewers will be considering you at the career level you are. So if you just finished your PhD, you are being evaluated on that level. They will look at your achievements to date according to the level you are at the moment. And if you are more experienced researcher, they will be looking at the level of experience you have. So don't be worrying about the fact that you might be competing at the same time with people that have 4 years of postdoctoral experience, because they will look individually at where you are in your career. Training and career development aspects and impact of the fellowships. So that's 25 marks. And again, I would discuss more the career development, but it's extremely important that you write and give time to each of these parts the same kind of care and dedication. Quality of the research project and publication plan. So that's your actual research proposal and what you plan to do, with that project, what are going to be your impacts. Suitability of the mentor and implementation of the fellowship. So it's very important that your mentor matches your profile, the institution is strong and well prepared to welcome you, and all the institutions here are, but you need to indicate this on your proposal, because yes, they will be also grading the institution and the mentor. So you need to write this well. So you do want to ask them to help you to write this part of the proposal. Tips that I want to give you here. So write a cohesive narrative. That's your story, and you are telling them that story. Do it in a professional way, not a personal or emotional way, but it's your story. Make it interesting, engaging, and impressive. Be bold when highlighting your skills. That's not the place to be humble or shy here. So you want to present yourself as an excellent researcher who is really outstanding in your field and at the level you are. You must score highly on all criteria. So it's not enough to have a strong proposal and write the other parts very weakly. You need to have all of them really well laid out. Indicative application, that's where you find the design of the proposed research. So you might feel that it's very different from what perhaps you would do in your home institution back in your country. But this is the format that you need to follow to guide your proposal. Perhaps you already have a proposal written that you submitted elsewhere, but now you have to reshape and make it look like the way they want to see it. My advice is to draft on this form. So you draft on this Word form before you put this information into the online platform. Observe the word limit. So you will see there that there are 500 words, 750 words, and so on. Write in first person. I know it's not very common what we do in the academia. It's not very common what we do in Romance languages, but that's what you need to do in this proposal. People want to hear about your story, about your achievements, and you can and you should write in first person. Be objective and concise, and not prolix and verbal. So be very clear and to the point. Write short, simple sentences. That's another key important difference between writing in English and writing in our Romance languages. So that's something that you need some practice on, but I really advise you to make your sentences short and clear. Research categorization. That is basic but important. So when you're identifying your primary area discipline, other research areas, and second categorization keywords, you are actually giving information to the council to choose your peer reviewer. So you want to be very careful here, because if you are interdisciplinary, you might want to discuss with your mentor what is the best choice for you. What kind of reviewer do you want to read your proposal? Which kind of group of scholars will understand better what you're proposing? So in my case, it's very straightforward. I would choose study of the past as primary area discipline history, and other research areas here I would put medieval history. But it's not that straightforward for people that have a very interdisciplinary work, so be mindful of this here. Also, your abstract. So they're asking for a lay abstract, and these will also help the council to choose the reviewers for you. And that is something that you will enter as soon as you get into the online platform. So don't rush in there. Have a good draft of your abstract before you start your eligibility quiz. So make a very good impression. Get them interested about your proposal from the very start. Set a good scenario. So don't take up too much space discussing state of the art, talking about what other scholars have done for you. Go to the gap directly, talk about the specifics of your proposal, your aims, the objectives, methodologies, planned results and impacts, and your career goals. It's a very short abstract, it's only 300 words, so you need to craft this well and choose very carefully what you want to go in there. So back to the proposed research part. So some sessions, as you will see, will just give you a sentence like this. So my advice to you is break them in pieces and make very clear subheadings to write down. Don't make very clumsy paragraphs, but make each paragraph very clear on what you're addressing. So like proposed research aims, objectives, and central research questions. I am giving you there a example what I have done on my project back 2014. So it is just an idea that you might mirror your methodologies with your central aims and objectives. For me, it worked very well, as you can see there. It's not what you have to do, but it's a suggestion on how to structure your project on these two different parts. Personal statement. So you will need to write your personal statement, and that will count towards the part where they're scoring you as an applicant. So here they give you an option to say and address things that you haven't addressed elsewhere in the whole proposal, and that you think and feel that is relevant to your application and make your application stronger. So again, here you want to get personal, but not too personal. So you want to tell them your story, but you don't need to tell your whole family history, your childhood, but you might want to show them why you have a passion for what you do, what moves you, why did you start this research, when, and why is this important for you, why is this important for the field, why do you think this will have a social impact. So you might want to have a more personal tone on this piece of your project. So another tip here is that the council will not share with your reviewers the personal information. So the parts on your project that says your name, your gender, your nationality will not be shared. So on your proposal, you might also be careful to not indicate your gender or your nationality or your age or things that you don't want your reviewer to have in their mind to help them to be neutral and without biases. So you really want the assessment to be based on how outstanding you are and how great your ideas are, instead of what are your backgrounds or your gender. Career training and development plan. So here you want to show them what your career goals are. Where are you going? So you already have a PhD, you want to do a postdoc, why? Obviously, a lot of people, following an academic path and applying for a postdoc are planning and hoping to have an academic career. Many of you might be planning to be a university lecturer, and that's absolutely fine. And if this is your case, go for it and say it here. However, it is very important that you're aware of how disputed these spaces are and how many PhDs are out there in the market, and the fact that not all of us will be absorbed by the university system. Some of us, like myself, might migrate to other areas and work in other areas. So what the council wants to see here is you laying out a plan for them, showing them, okay, I want a career in academia, and this is my plan. These are the skills I already have, and these are the skills I'm going to achieve during this postdoc, and those are the things I'm going to do after the postdoc. But also, you have to show them that you are aware that you may need to work either for a period of time or for the other part of your career outside of academia, and you might want to show them what the transferable skills are. What are the skills that you have now that you will develop during your postdoc that will make you a professional that can work elsewhere? So you really want to think hard about this and show this on this part of your development plan. And yes, your mentor is expected to read this part as well. So they're not supposed to read only your academic proposal research. They're supposed to read the whole application and comment on all parts, including this one. It is their role to help you to plan your career and to monitor that this is going in the direction that is planned. I want to call your attention to the website of Vitae. So they have designed this research and development framework which you might want to look. So as you can see, there are 4 key domains or skills that all of us as researchers, we already have them, and we develop them in our careers. So it's a matter of identifying which ones you have, which ones you may develop during your postdoc, and being very aware of them. Gender, sex and gender dimension, that is a very important aspect that was introduced in this proposal back in 2014 when I was applying to this fellowship. And as you will see through the 2 kits here that I introduced here, this is something that is part of the European Commission mindset, and all the European funding agencies are very strong on the importance of gender strategy and action. So I really encourage you to think very much about this part. Don't leave it blank. For some scholars, it might be very obvious and very straightforward, especially people already working with gender studies. However, it's not that easy for everyone. And I would say if it's your case, you don't clearly see what is the gender dimension of your research, I would challenge you to talk to people, talk to other colleagues, talk to people in different fields, talk to people in the humanities, for example, and you might come up with ideas. I found this very interesting website from the Karolinska Institutet in Sweden, and they have this very visual, helpful graphic that shows you that sex and gender in research should be part of all parts of your project. So research idea phase, the phase you are now, research proposal phase, it has to come across in your proposal. Then in the actual research phase and dissemination phase. So when you're planning your impacts, also try to think how gender and sex dimension can be integrated on the different kind of impacts you might have. Data management plan, so that is something really new into this program as well. But again, another very important aspect of research, especially research funded through European agencies. So basically, your data has to be fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. It means that other researchers will access your data. In case your data is very sensitive and you can't be sharing it so easily, you need to explain why. Why is it a specific type of data that cannot be shared? But you have to show that you have given thought to this, that you know what your data are, what kind of data your project will generate, and how you will manage it. So it means basic things from how you will file it, how are you gonna make sure that if your computer explodes, you didn't lose your information, to other things of thinking how your research can be useful for other researchers. Because after all, funding agencies are funding our projects and our ideas with public money. So we have an accountability to society in regard to what we do with our research and our time. So basically, if in 2 years' time you decide to take another career, but you had a wonderful project that has very great value, your data still can be used by someone else and provide an impact to science. So I really encourage you to be reading about data, open data, and open access, because they're 2 different things. So you also want to show the council that you're thinking about how your publications will be open access. And that's a different thing of your data being open. But the 2 things are important. You want your publications to be accessible to the public, but you also want your data to be accessible to other researchers. So talk to your research office if you need help with this part. Most of the institutions here in Ireland already have plans in place, so the libraries would have a professional that is an expert in this field. They would have platforms and database where they can store this information for you during and after your project, So do look at the library pages of the host institution where you're coming to, and seek help to write these parts strongly. Application process. So you already seen parts of the indicative form, which is the Word document that you can use to draft your application. But at some point, you need to go online and put all this information on an online form. So the platform used by the Irish Research Council is Smart Simple. So I really encourage you, again, to read very carefully the guides for applicants before you even touch the online form. Basically, because last year they introduced this eligibility quiz, which in the previous year caused a lot of headaches to applicants and research offices, because once you log in and you answer your eligibility quiz, save and submit, the eligibility quiz closes. You can't go back on it and you can't update the information. And the problem is that if you answer any question incorrectly and you are considered not eligible, you can't get your application done. A solution to this, and I'm going to give you a tip here, is that you may log in with a different email. So there is a solution to get back and you get your application done. However, this is not perfect, because if you register for the first time with your primary email, the one that you use more often, and you do it incorrectly and you logged out, you can't use that email any longer and you can't move forward your application, and you use another email that you may just create for this occasion or email that you don't use so often, later on, after the assessment process, when the ISC wants to contact you with your results, they will use the email you used to register on the platform. So you need to make sure that the email you use to submit your application is the one that you check regularly. So you want to know whether you are awarded or not. Otherwise, the ISC want to be able to reach you. They are not going to be phoning you or anything like this. So do not rush to start your application. The other thing with the eligibility quiz is that the last very question, the very last question is if you already have a mentor. So if you don't have one, don't even start the application, because you have to say there, yes, I have a mentor, and you have to give the name of your mentor, and you actually type in, or you have to copy and paste the name of your mentor, which is even better. So the challenge with this is that once you write the name of your mentor, it has to be perfectly the same name, the same spelling that is registered on the platform. Because once you actually proceed into the online form, you have a drop-down menu where you're going to look for the name of your mentor, and the names has to match. So if you typed the name of your mentor incorrectly, or if you just threw in a name because you're not sure yet who is going to be your mentor, you will also invalidate your application. So don't rush to start it. Do it when you're sure who is your mentor, the right spelling of their name. Ask them if they already registered into Smart Simple. If they aren't, they have to contact their research office to do it for them. If their names are in the system, ask them what exactly the names are like, because some people might be called Patrick, but might be registered in the system as Pat Fitzgerald, and you don't know that. So I know it's a small detail, but very important, and it creates a lot of problem. When uploading your application from the Word doc into the online form, remember to save draft. So keep saving the draft as long as you're working into the platform, so then you don't waste your time by losing information and having to upload everything again. So once you're into the platform, that is what it looks like. So that's your new eligibility quiz. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pass a slide. So here we go. So these are the questions you're going to get, and you have to answer all of them correctly. Also, you will have to type in a version of your abstract here, and you want it to be the closer the possible to your final version. And then you click save draft first. It will double check with you it's correct, and then only then you submit. So in terms of in terms of deadline, so the deadline for applicants is the 19th of November 2020, and that's the main deadline that you have to worry about now. So the FAQ, so the frequent answer and questions deadline is the 12th of November. So that means that between now and the 12th of November, you still can ask the Irish Research Councils. However, you can't write them directly because they will not engage and reply applicants. So that means you need to write to the research office of the institution where you want to go to work to and to work at, and then they will check if the question you have is not already answered in the frequent answer and question document. If the answer is not there, if the research office doesn't know the answer to your question, then they will forward it to the IRC. And again, the IRC will not get back to you. They will publish the answer on that document. So they will keep updating that document. So it's really important that maybe once a week you have a check and have a look if there are new answers, if perhaps they answered a question that you proposed and you submitted. So, you know, that's the way it works, and otherwise they can't manage the large volume of applications and questions. My tips, my final tips: draft. So your first draft is not going to be your final version. You need to be working on it, thinking about it, and developing your idea and perfecting the structure of your project. Take your time, take breaks, exercise, ask your mentor and peers to review and comment on your application. Very important that your mentor might read your whole proposal. Research officers are not going to read your proposal for you. They will give you information, they will give support, they might have documents that will help you, but they will not review it for you. But if you can ask people beyond your mentor, colleagues, on your discipline, experts outside of your discipline, the more comments you get, the stronger your application will be. And be open to criticism, but also don't ask people that would be too critical, because you want people to do it in a nice, constructive way. Upload your application into the online system a couple of days prior to the deadline. So that's very important, because loads of people will be submitting more or less at the same time. So if you do in the last day, chances are you might encounter a problem. Send a gentle reminder to your supervisor and referee. So the deadline is after yours. So it's very important, first of all, that you get all the information about your mentor and the two referees perfectly correct into the online platform. Their names and their emails need to be right, because they will receive an email for them to upload the information into the online system as well. So they are busy people, we all are, so it is your duty to remind them. Send them a kind reminder, be gentle, but do it, and don't shy away from checking on them, because if they don't submit their part, your proposal is ineligible. That means even if you do everything perfectly, meet your deadline, and one of your referees don't submit their online form, your application is not going to be sent to the international reviewers. So you really need them to be on board, and also mind that what they will say on those letters matter and will be counted towards the grading that the reviewers will give to your profile. So you want to ask people that are excited about your work, excited about your career, excited about your project, and have really nice positive things to say. If they're too busy and they don't have a good level of engagement with you, if you're not confident that they will write a nice letter, perhaps you should consider someone else. So that is my final remarks on this. I wish you all the very best luck in writing your proposal and submitting to the Irish Research Council. But in case you feel like you don't have the time this year yet to get the application done, or if you want to increase your chances and try more than one funder, the other options to bring you to Ireland are the Marie Curie individual fellowships. So I have the links there, and the Irish University Association has an office dedicated to support applicants under this scheme. So there is a national contact point that every year organizes virtual webinars like this one and writing clinics, and she's extremely helpful. So I really encourage you to consider applying to this, as there are loads of supports from the Irish University Association, but as well as from research offices in each individual institution. Other than the European Commission funding, the national funders, in addition to the Irish Research Council, are the Science Foundation Ireland, the Health Research Board, and CHAGASC. However, while the IRC and the Marie Curie Office individual fellowship would fund any and all disciplines, STEM and arts and humanities, these three other national funders, they are very specific on certain groups of disciplines. So the SFI would fund STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths, while the Health Research Board would fund people in like health sciences, obviously, and CHAGASC is focused on agriculture and food development in Ireland. So these are the other options that you might want to consider depending on your expertise. My very last slide now, I think, yes, is to wish you luck and really encourage you to take your time as you go through this process. Enjoy it. Think that you are learning new skills. I hope you will be awarded and I might see you in Ireland, but if not, even if you're not awarded, you are learning, you're developing writing grant skills. And if this is not the time that you're going to get your postdoc, use the feedback to strengthen your next application, but keep the motivation up and best of luck.
Thanks a lot, Elaine. Your presentation was very clear and full of practical advices. I'm sure the audience appreciated it very much. Before answering your questions, and you already did answer some of them, I would like to tell you a little bit more about this webinar and actually the series it's part of. For those who don't know us yet, EURAXESS is a European Commission initiative that promotes researcher mobility and career development. EURAXESS doesn't fund mobility itself, but EURAXESS provides information and support services for you to turn your dream of mobility into reality. So in the LAC region, we inform researchers about career opportunities in Europe in cooperation with European researchers. We send alerts when a call is open to fund mobility. We offer info session, trainings, but mainly on European funding for mobility, which are the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions that Elaine mentioned and was awarded also, and also grants by the European councils. But there are plenty of other sources of funding to support your research stay in Europe by European member states themselves. And this is what we've just seen now with Elaine's presentation. That's why when Elaine contacted EURAXESS in Latin America and the Caribbean, offering to co-organize this webinar, we decided to launch a new series of webinars to bring detailed information on funding offered by those member states. So I thank you again for your initiative. I would like to say that you can find these funding by member states on the EURAXESS portal, which is our main door to the European research in many European countries, in 40 European countries that we cover. So you can find those funding on and opportunities on the job and funding portal that you can see on your screen. But you can also use EURAXESS to test your skills and develop other skills for your future career, but also to find partners and to find information and assistance to prepare your relocation when you are already moving, when you already found you were successful applying to this call or to any other, and you want to prepare your arrival in the new country. Then you can get the support of our colleagues in Europe. In Ireland, let me show you, EURAXESS Ireland has its own portal. You can see it on your screen, euraxess.ie, with relevant information on visa, as Elaine has just said, and other information on your country of arrival. They are all over the country. You can see now the network of EURAXESS in Ireland in many institutions, and all of them can help you. Even if you go to another institution, they are at your disposal to answer your questions and help you settle, you and your family, because we know that sometimes you travel with your family, and it's very important to have a nice environment for the family, for the researcher to be happy in his or her lab. Well, to close my short presentation of EURAXESS and what we can do for you, I would like to invite you to follow us on our social media. We have a Facebook and a Twitter page in Portuguese for the Brazilian audience, and also a Facebook and a Twitter page in Spanish for the Spanish-speaking audience in Latin America and the Caribbean. So follow us, and then you don't miss any of the opportunity that we share. Now I would like to take the questions. We received many questions, but Elaine, you answered some of them while you were presenting. One that I would like to ask is the cost of living in Ireland. You mentioned the amounts of the fellowship, the postdoctoral fellowship by the Irish Research Council, but is it enough to go with your family and live with your family if your partner can't work, or if you are only traveling with your kids? How does it work?
Thank you, Charlotte. Yes, the fellowship is a good fellowship. It's a generous fellowship, but if we compare to what fellows might get, for example, from the Marie Curie individual fellowships, it's a bit lesser. So like the Marie Curie fellowship is very generous and would give you some money for the actual mobility to move your family with you, while the IRC doesn't give that top up on your salary. However, it is possible to live in Ireland with that amount of money and to have your family here. However, I do have to highlight that Ireland is a very expensive country, particularly Dublin. Dublin is a very expensive city, and what really is like the most expensive thing in the cost of life for people here is renting. So renting is expensive in Ireland, even in small places. So people need to be open-minded about sharing. But also I want to encourage people to be open-minded as where to go in Ireland. Like Ireland has many universities, institutions of technology, institutions of research, and you might find a wonderful institution and mentor that is not necessarily based at the big centers, and that might also make the cost of living a bit more loose and not so tight. But I really encourage people to try to talk to people from their nationalities in Ireland and chat to people informally, in the sense that yeah, the fellowship is generous, but you need to be mindful that the country is also very expensive. So the good thing is like partners have the right to work. Obviously it's a different step to know if they will find the job, but it's a possibility. Education in Ireland is for free for kids beyond 5 years old, so primary education and secondary education. Unfortunately, it's not the same for primary care. So for creche and Montessori, if your kids are under 4 or 5, you will need to take that into consideration because that is a high cost. But otherwise, education is free.
Okay.
Thank you, Elaine, for your answer. There are many people asking about how to approach mentors and how to find mentors. Do you have any practical advice on how to approach mentors? And there's one also specific question that I will combine with this, is that some funding for research, for example, in Brazil, the CV of the mentor is very important to get your proposal approved. Is this also considered in this case?
Thank you, Danielle. So yes, my very first approach to a mentor here was very informal. So I approached a mentor supervisors here when I was coming for my doctoral degree and not my postdoctoral degree. So I was still very inexperienced. So the responses I got were varied. So there were people that just never replied to me because it was just a random bachelor Brazilian writing an email saying, I want to do a PhD in Ireland. And there were people that were very very open and very welcoming. So I would say the best thing is like, try to go to the typical platforms, LinkedIn, Academia, and just browse online, look at the profile of specific university institutions, and try to see if you can identify experts in your field in Ireland, or people that are at least relatively related. They don't need to be the top experts on your area, but they need to be working closely enough to what you do. Because at this point, as a postdoctoral fellow, you are an expert in your field as well. You also have things to offer, so you have to think that you also bringing knowledge to them. So it's the whole transferable aspect of exchange. You are taking some knowledge, but you're bringing some as well. And be as professional as you can. But my general impression from Irish scholars is that they are open and they are very approachable. And there are cases when they are not, maybe they are not the best mentor for you. So my advice is try to work with people that are friendly, that are open to work with other nationalities, that are willing to share experiences with you. So that has been my approach. If people want to welcome me, then I know they will be a good supervisor. If they don't reply to my email, I probably don't want to work with them either. But they are very open. So I really challenge you to go to the usual platforms, identify your peers, and write them a nice email, and hopefully they will get back to you soon. In terms of their CVs, yes, it's very important. More so to the postdoctoral level than to the doctoral level, because they need to, well, first of all, you need to show that there is some matching between your profile and their profile in terms of research interests. But also they need to show that they have some experience of managing people, of mentoring other fellows or other postdocs. So if they are very new, if they are new lecturer, new researcher as well, on early career themselves, it is harder for them to prove that they have enough experience to train you. Although this is not really, like, don't take it as a completely no, but you need to phrase things in a nice way that you will sell your mentor well in the application. But yes, the stronger their CV, their profile, their list of publications, their international networks, if they can list the number of people they already trained to say, I had X number of postdocs under this fellowship, or I had Marie Curie fellows that I trained, that will look very good on the application. But if they don't have that, look at what is their strength and really bring this forward in the application.
Thank you, Elaine. Regarding the eligibility criteria, it was very clear. You said that you need a PhD and it has to be awarded within the last 5 years. What about the age limit?
No, there is no age limit. So that's a very positive thing. So they don't determine the age of people. So like, I mean, you can do your PhD and your postdoc at any point in your career. Maybe you were a professional for years, you were working in the industry, and then you decide to come back to academia, do a PhD, and you are now applying to a postdoc. So the only thing that unfortunately they don't fund under this scheme is people that are very experienced researchers, in the sense of having a very linear career. So someone like myself that have been awarded over 7 years ago, I can't apply under this scheme anymore.
Okay.
Great to know. Thank you, Elaine. A career question, more or less combining also two questions that we have here. One is about the terms of the fellowship. So it's a fixed contract, and people are asking if there is a possibility of renewing it, and if not, what are the possibilities after the fellowship is over? And another question is also regarding the plans of the researcher. If the researcher wants to get back to his home country afterwards, is this a bad thing? Should he or she say this in the proposal, or should they aim to say that they will develop their career in Ireland or in Europe in a broader sense?
Thank you. Yeah, so the first one, so it is a fixed term contract, so you cannot extend in the sense that you just want to have like a 3-year postdoc. So you can't have this kind of extension. What you are entitled to is to have a a no-cost extension if you're sick. So if you have a sick leave, you are entitled to pause your fellowship, and you need to have approval from the council. But the council is extremely approachable in that sense. If in one hand, while you're applying, they will not reply to your emails, when you are fellow, they will look after this kind of issue. It may take time, but they will look after this kind of issue. Also, you are entitled to maternity leave, parental leave. According to Irish rules, you are entitled to paid maternity leave. So maternity leaves in Ireland are fully paid for 6 months. So you will have an income through the university where you are, the institution where you are, and the IRC for 6 months, the same salary of your postdoc, and you might extend your maternity leave for another 4 months without additional payment. So if you have enough savings during that time, you can stay with your child for another 4 months without additional payment, and I have been through this process during my postdoc. And yeah, adoption leave, parental leave, maternity leave, and sick leave are all eligible reasons to either stop or extend your fellowship, but you need approval, formal approval of the council. If you encounter one of these situations, you need to bring to their attention immediately. But they are very nice about this. So the other part was about the mobility of people, if people are planning to stay in Ireland for 1 or 2 years for this postdoc and return to their original countries. So as I mentioned, like the Irish Research Council has a very clear strategic plan. So they are willing to bring people to work in Ireland, and they are aware that these people might go elsewhere. But the importance is that you show that while you're here, are making a contribution to scholarship, but also when you go, you perhaps become one link between the academy in your country and Ireland. So I wouldn't say perhaps clearly that your plan is to have a career back in your country. I wouldn't maybe be as specific as to say where you want your career to happen after this postdoc, also because you might encounter a number of different opportunities and not really follow up with us. But just not to have it working against you, depending on what kind of reviewer you get. But obviously, the Irish Research Council doesn't have the expectation of people promising that they will stay in Ireland or in Europe. They know scholars are very mobile, and we have to go where the opportunities are. And then I think part of the first question as well was, what are the opportunities for after your 2-year postdoc in Ireland? Obviously, you can't extend this contract, but you might be able to apply to other fellowships, such as the ones I mentioned. And so from the point of view from the ISC, once you finish those 2 years, you will be done with them. But you can stay in the country if you have other contracts. So your visa is renewable if you continue having, something like a fellowship such as this. So the legal condition is something that you have to analyze, but it is possible, but not under this very same scheme. So you need to look for other postdocs, or perhaps, who knows, you might be lucky to get another, lectureship or some different kind of a contract in Ireland.
And you can use the EURAXESS job portal to look for more opportunities in Ireland or any other country in Europe and worldwide. Elaine, is there any documents to provide while applying, and mostly regarding English skills? Do you have to prove any level of English?
No, you don't have to prove for the postdoctoral fellowship. Actually, for all the applications of the Irish Research Council, even for postgrads, they don't ask for any documents up front. So if people apply for, say, an MA or PhD, they will only be asked documents regarding language skills once they're offered the position at the university, but they will not demand this kind of proof from a postdoctoral fellow. So I guess as long as you're confident you can write your application in English, you can communicate to your mentor, that is fine. You might want to do some teaching at the university, but be very careful with that, because the ISC limits how many hours per week a fellow can teach. So read that in the terms and condition, and don't make very big promises in the application, because that can work against you. But obviously, if you want to teach, you want to have a good English, and then the university might judge this. But you don't need this kind of document, and you don't really need to have any document onto the application stage. If you are awarded, they will ask for you to prove what kind of degrees you have, either if you have your PhD or if you have what they call the equivalent amount of experience. So perhaps you have an MA, but you have been, I don't know, a researcher or a lecturer for 10 years, and you can prove that you have more than 4-year research experience, and you have what they call an equivalent to a PhD. So there are ways of applying to this scheme without a PhD, but you have to prove that you are a very experienced researcher.
Okay. Elaine, thank you so much. We are running out of time, but I just want to make probably a last very quick question. You went through all the stages of the proposal, but is there a proposal template that people can access to?
Yeah, the only template is the one that that is called indicative form. So that's where you see more or less what is like inside the online form, and that's the structure. So each part there gives you a word limit. So they indicate if the objective and aims has to be within 500 words and how long your methodology needs to be. It's usually around 500 words and 750 words each session. But the indicative form is what we would call the actual project template.
Thank you, Elaine. I'm afraid we are running out of time, so we have to close this webinar, but I would like to thank you very much for your time and expertise. You are very passionate about your host country, and I must say that this is contagious. We received many thanks for you in the questions from the audience, and many interested researchers will apply from the region. We are very happy for that. Thanks to the audience for tuning in. As you heard, this webinar is part of a series by EURAXESS LAC on European member states funding. So check out our EURAXESS LAC social media for our next editions. But we also have webinars on career development for researchers, both in Portuguese next week and in Spanish the week after. So check EURAXESS LAC website for more information. I wish you, everybody, a wonderful afternoon. Thanks again, Elaine.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.